Hi everyone. I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today I'm bringing you a fox hooded scarf made with high quality yarn. Soft and comfortable, skin friendly and healthy, lightweight yet warm. The combination of the hood and scarf enhances its practicality. It meets various styling needs. The cartoon design is cute and playful. If you need to purchase the original materials kit and get crocheting guidance, please log into our website, soosodiy.com, and search for the product, or search for Susan's Family on social media platforms to find us. If you want to be the first to watch the latest knitting tutorials, scan the code to follow us right away. Now let's get to the main topic. This hooded scarf consists of two parts, the main part and accessories. The main part includes the long scarf fabric piece and the hat fabric piece above. The accessories include fox ears and tassels. First, complete the crocheting of the scarf. Then, work upwards along one side of the scarf to crochet the hat. After completing it, work around along the edges of the hat and the scarf. Finally, make the accessories and attach them to the corresponding positions. First, let's learn the method for making the main part. Start by crocheting the scarf. The scarf itself is divided into two sections, with the starting point in the center. We refer to the left side area as the first section. The right side area is called the second section. First, make the first section of the scarf. Let's look at the chart. The first section consists of two areas, the even section and the decreasing section. Start by working the even section. Here we use foundation chain. Then work along the starting row. Work back and forth in rows. The stitches used are chain, single crochet and double crochet. Watch me demonstrate the specific crocheting method. For convenience of watching, I'm using cotton yarn for this demonstration. Random colors. For specific yarn, color scheme and hook size, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. First, cast on. Pick up the yarn tail with your right hand. Wrap it around your left little finger. Pass it through between your index and middle fingers. Pinch the yarn tail with your left thumb and middle finger. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. The hook moves between these 2 points. Place the hook underneath the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. There's a loop on the hook. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your left hand. The hook is on the left side of the yarn. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. Tighten the tail. Now begin crocheting chain stitches. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This is one chain stitch. Continue crocheting chain stitches downward. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch the specific number of chains. Please refer to the corresponding chart if you want to adjust the width of the scarf. You can increase or decrease the number of chains, no matter how many you add or subtract. The number of chains here must be a multiple of 3 plus 2. Continue crocheting downward. Second stitch. Third stitch. Fourth stitch. Fifth stitch. Keep going. You can make the chains a bit looser here. Complete the required number of chains. Place a marker on the last stitch. If you don't have a marker, use a safety pin or paperclip instead. This completes the starting chain. Start the first row. First make a chain stitch as the turning chain for single crochet. Here the turning chain does not count as a stitch. Insert the hook underneath the chain stitch with the marker. Here the right side of the chain forms a V-shaped loop. Pick up the front loop of the V-shaped loop. This is one strand. Make one single crochet. Insert the hook into the front loop of the chain stitch with the marker. Yarn over. Pull the yarn through. 2 loops remain on the hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops. 1 single crochet is done. This is the first single crochet. Mark this stitch. Leave the marker below for now. Pick up above the single crochet the 2 strands of the V shape. Place a stitch marker. Continue crocheting single crochets downward. Pick up the front loop of the adjacent chain. Front loop. Yarn over. Pull the yarn through. Then yarn over. Pull through all loops on the hook. Complete the second single crochet. This row consists of single crochets only. Working into the front loop of each chain. Work into each stitch accordingly. Repeat this process. Continue until the last chain stitch. When reaching the last chain stitch, work 1 single crochet accordingly. This completes the first row. Start the second row. When working back and forth, turn the fabric over. Continue from the yarn tail. Chain 3 as the beginning chain for the double crochet. One, 2, 3. These 3 chains count as 1 double crochet. At the 3rd stitch, pick up 2 strands on the edge. Place a stitch marker. The beginning chain corresponds to the last stitch of the previous row. Skip down the stitch corresponding underneath the beginning chain and the adjacent stitch. Pick up the next stitch. Work 1 double crochet. The technique for double crochet is yarn over once. Insert the hook into the chain above the corresponding single crochet. Yarn over and draw through. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 loops. Continue to yarn over, and draw through in once. 1 double crochet is done. Work 1 chain space down. Then insert into the same space. Make 1 double crochet. Yarn over once. Insert. Pull through. Then yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Repeat twice. Once. Twice. Here we consider these 2 double crochets worked in the full hole, and the chain stitch in the middle of the double crochets. As pattern A. Skip 2 stitches down. Pick up the next stitch. Work pattern A. First 1 double crochet. Then 1 chain stitch. Work another double crochet in the same hole. Complete pattern A. Continue skipping 2 stitches. Pick up the next stitch and work pattern A. The following pattern is skip 2 stitches apart. Pick the corresponding position and work pattern A. The stitch pattern for pattern A is work 2 double crochets in 1 hole, with 1 chain stitch between the double crochets. Note that there is no chain stitch between pattern A, no chain stitch interval. Follow this pattern. Continue crocheting downward. Complete this pattern A. 2 stitches remain afterward. To match the beginning and ending, skip the adjacent stitch here. Pick the marked stitch position. Work 1 double crochet. This way, both the beginning and ending are 1 double crochet, with pattern A in the middle. Meanwhile, the double crochets at both ends and pattern A are spaced by 1 stitch. That concludes the explanation for row 2. Mark any position on this side. Which is the right side of the piece? The double crochet texture appears more even. Now crochet row 3. Using stitch patterns corresponding to row 1. Using single crochet stitch. First turn the fabric. Before crocheting each subsequent row, you need to turn the fabric once. I won't repeat this instruction later. Continuing from the yarn tail. First make 1 chain stitch as the turning chain for single crochet. The turning chain for single crochet does not count as a stitch. Insert the hook into the corresponding stitch below. Make 1 single crochet. Mark this stitch. This is the first stitch. Pick up stitches in adjacent positions. Work single crochets. When you encounter pattern A's chain stitch later, insert the hook into the large space below the chain. Make 1 single crochet. For the following stitch positions, pick up stitches correspondingly and work single crochets. When you encounter a chain stitch, insert the hook into the space below it. Work 1 single crochet correspondingly. Continue this process. Complete this row. Finish the single crochets above pattern A. When you reach the beginning chain position later, insert the hook into the stitch marker's space. Make 1 single crochet. This completes row 3. Next, work on row 4. Make 3 chain stitches as the turning chain for the double crochet. At the 3rd stitch, pick up 2 strands on the edge and mark it. These 3 chains count as 1 double crochet. Skip down the stitch corresponding below the beginning chain and the adjacent stitch. Pick up the next stitch. Crochet 3 double crochets into 1 chain space. One, 2, 3. Here, we consider the 3 double crochets worked into 1 chain space as pattern B. Continue skipping 2 stitches. Pick up the next stitch and work pattern B, which means crochet 3 double crochets into 1 chain space. Skip 2 stitches afterward. Pick up the corresponding stitch, work pattern B. Finish the remaining part. Complete this pattern B. 2 stitches remaining afterward. Similarly to correspond with the beginning position, skip the adjacent stitch here. Pick up the stitch marker position and make 1 double crochet. You can see this row is similar to row 2. Both beginning and ending with 1 double crochet, and space 1 stitch the same as the pattern. Only the pattern in the middle area is different. For subsequent rows, whether working pattern A or pattern B, the beginning and ending stitch techniques are the same. This completes row 4. Work row 5 downward, corresponding to the stitch technique of row 3, which is single crochet. First, make 1 chain stitch as the turning chain. The starting position for subsequent single crochet rows is always chain 1 to begin, and the single crochet turning chains do not count as a stitch. I won't explain this in detail later. Then pick up stitches 1 by 1. Work even single crochets. Remember to mark the first stitch. Continue crocheting downward. Complete this row. Finish the last single crochet, which is at the stitch marker. Row 5 is completed. Then work row 6, corresponding to row 2 stitch pattern. Crochet pattern A. Chain 3 as the turning chain. Mark the corresponding position. These 3 chains count as 1 double crochet when encountering pattern A later. And pattern B, always chain 3 as the turning chain. And the turning chains count as 1 double crochet. I won't explain this in detail later. Skip the next stitch and the adjacent stitch. Pick up the corresponding position to crochet pattern A. Then skip 2 stitches. Pick up the corresponding position to crochet pattern A. Finish the remaining part. Complete the last pattern A. Skip 1 stitch, make 1 double crochet at the stitch marker position. Complete the crocheting of row 6. Next, crochet row 7. Correspondingly make single crochets. Pick up stitches and chain spaces respectively. Work even single crochets. The method is simple. I won't demonstrate this part, you can complete it on your own. The crocheting of this row. Remember to mark the first stitch. While crocheting, avoid extra or missing stitches. I've already completed row 7. Now crochet row 8. Correspond to the stitch pattern of row 4. Crochet pattern B. First, make 3 chain stitches as the turning chain. Mark it. Skip the next stitch and the adjacent stitch below. Pick up the corresponding position to crochet pattern B. Then skip 2 stitches. Pick up the corresponding position to crochet pattern B. Complete this row. Finish the last pattern B. Skip the adjacent stitch. Make 1 double crochet at the stitch marker. Complete the crocheting of row 8. Let's take a look at the pattern. As you can see, the stitch patterns from rows 5 to 8 correspond to those from rows 1 to 4. Both consist of 1 row of single crochets, 1 row of pattern A, 1 row of single crochets, 1 row of pattern B. Here we're referring to rows 5 through 8 as a repeating sequence. Continue crocheting the same 4-row stitch pattern in sequence until you reach the corresponding row count. Refer to the pattern chart for exact row numbers, or adjust according to your preference. The crochet method remains the same, so I won't demonstrate further. Up to this point, the even section explanation is complete. Next, crochet the decreasing section. The crocheting pattern is identical to the even section, 4 rows per sequence, but here you need to decrease at the beginning and ending. Besides the stitch techniques used previously, here we also use single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 3 stitches together, and double crochet decrease. Watch my demonstration. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch. Row 1 of the decreasing section uses single crochet stitches. You need to decrease at the beginning and ending, continuing from the previous yarn tail. First, make a chain stitch as the beginning chain. Then insert the hook into the corresponding stitch below. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through 2 loops on your hook. This is an incomplete single crochet. Adjacent stitch. Continue to crochet another incomplete single crochet. Insert. Yarn over and draw through. Now there are 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, and draw through in once. A single crochet decrease is done. 2 single crochets. Merged into 1 stitch. A 2-stitch single crochet decrease. On this stitch. Mark it. Pick up the adjacent stitch. Work even single crochets. Leave the last 2 stitches unworked. Which is the beginning chain and the adjacent stitch position. Work to the third to last stitch, down to the decreasing section at the end, and the beginning chain marker. Work an incomplete single crochet, one, 2. Finally yarn over. Pull through all loops on the hook. Complete the 2-stitch single crochet decrease, matching up with the starting position. This completes the first row of the decreasing section. Work the second row downward. Using pattern A stitch technique. Decrease at both beginning and ending. Make 3 chain stitches as the beginning chain, since decreasing is required. The turning chain does not count as a stitch. No marker needed. Skip downward to the stitch below and the adjacent stitch. Pick up the next stitch. Make 1 double crochet. Mark the stitch. Since the beginning chain does not count as a stitch, the starting position is effectively 1 stitch short. Skip 1 stitch. Pick up the next stitch and crochet pattern A. After completion, skip 2 stitches. Match the corresponding position and crochet pattern A. Leave the last 4 stitches unworked. Which are these 4 stitches? Continue crocheting downward. When reaching the corresponding position, decrease stitches downward. First, skip the adjacent stitch. Pick up the next stitch. Make an incomplete double crochet. Yarn over the hook once. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 loops remaining. This is an incomplete double crochet. Continue downward by skipping 1 stitch. Pick up the marked stitch position. Make an incomplete double crochet. Yarn over. Insert. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through in once. 1 double crochet decrease is completed. 2 double crochets have been merged into 1 stitch. As you can see, the beginning and ending decreases and the pattern. Both skip one stitch. And between the two stitches at the decrease point. Also skips one stitch. Meaning the decrease position takes up 3 stitches. The middle stitch of these 3 is left unworked. Skip one stitch between the decrease and the pattern. Still skip 2 stitches in the middle pattern section. This completes the second row. Next work the third row. Using single crochet stitch. Decrease 2 single crochets at the beginning and ending. Same as the first row stitch pattern. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Slip the stitch below and the adjacent stitch. Work a decrease of 2 single crochets. And mark this stitch. Work even single crochets after completion. Leave the last 2 stitches unworked, meaning the stitch marker and the stitch next to it. Reach the corresponding position. Work a decrease of 2 single crochets. Mindful that the turning chain position is not worked. This completes the third row. Move on to the fourth row, which is pattern B stitch pattern. Decreases are needed at the beginning and ending. The decrease method is the same as the first pattern in row 2. Make 3 beginning chains. No marking needed. Skip 1 stitch downward. Mindful to skip the stitch under the turning chain. Continue skipping 1 stitch afterward. Pick up the next stitch. Make 1 double crochet. Mark the stitch. The turning chain does not count as a stitch, resulting in 1 less stitch. Skip 1 stitch downward. Match the corresponding position to crochet pattern B. Skip 2 stitches afterward. Match the corresponding position to crochet pattern B. Leave the last 4 stitches unworked. Reach the corresponding position. First skip the adjacent stitch. Pick up the next stitch. Work an incomplete double crochet. then skip one stitch afterward. Pick up the last stitch. Work an incomplete double crochet. Yarn over. Pull through all loops on the hook in one go. Complete the double crochet decrease. Simultaneously complete row 4. Proceed downward following the pattern of decreasing section rows 1-4. Repeat the sequence downward. When encountering single crochet rows, decrease 2 single crochets at beginning and ending. Note: when crocheting, do not pick up the turning chain for the double crochet. When encountering pattern A and pattern B, the beginning chain at the starting position does not count as a stitch, equivalent to decreasing 1 stitch. Only the turning chain for double crochet in the decreasing section does not count as a stitch. In the even section it still counts as a stitch. Then at the last 3 stitches at the end, work double crochet decrease. While crocheting, pay attention to avoid extra or missing stitches. After completing a row, compare with the chart. Check the stitch count. Continue with this decreasing method all the way down to the third to last row. And complete the third to last row. The following rows follow the same method. I won't demonstrate it anymore. I'll demonstrate the next part. Crocheting the second to last row. This is a completed third to last row swatch. With 1 stitch marked by a stitch marker, there are 5 stitches remaining on the workpiece. Here the second to last row uses single crochet stitch pattern. Decrease 2 single crochets at both beginning and ending. Start with a decrease stitch. Mark it. After completing, work a single crochet into the adjacent stitch. Followed by a 2-stitch decrease. Finish crocheting the second to last row. 3 stitches remain on the fabric piece. Move on to crochet the last row, which is a 3-stitch decrease. Start with a chain stitch. Then pick up 3 stitches respectively. Work incomplete single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Yarn over. Draw through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the 3-stitch decrease, finishing the last row at the same time. Proceed to cut the yarn. Secure with a chain stitch. Leave a 5 cm yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. Weave in the yarn tail into the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches. Trim excess yarn tails. Remove stitch markers at the beginning and end of each row. Note: stitch markers marking right side, wrong side, and the stitch marker at the beginning chain. Keep them for now. This completes the decreasing section, as well as the first section of the scarf. That concludes the explanation. The first section is completed. Next, we'll make the second section, which also has an even section and a decreasing section, using the same stitch pattern, identical to the first section, except starting with one fewer row of single crochets. Begin directly with pattern A. I'll demonstrate here. Crocheting the first row of the second section. Pick up the first section with the cast on row facing up. Right side of the piece facing you. The starting tail is now on the left side. The stitch marker for the cast on is on the right side. Pick up the yarn again. To make it clearer here, I'll demonstrate with a different color. When working on the actual project, still use the main color yarn. Make a knot with the yarn. Leave a yarn loop. Find the stitch marker. Pick up the horizontal bar below the stitch marker with the hook. This small horizontal line. Insert. There are 2 crossing loops on the hook. This is the remaining half of the beginning chain. The remaining half. Place the yarn loop onto the hook. Pull through. Adjust the loop size. Chain 3 as the turning chain. Mark the third stitch. You can see the turning chain and the single crochet on the other side are in the same chain space. Skip the adjacent position downward. You can use the single crochet as a reference here. Skip the adjacent stitch. Insert the hook into the base of the next single crochet. Half of the remaining braid. These 2 strands of yarn. Crochet pattern A. When completed, skip 2 stitches backward. Pick up half of the braid. Crochet pattern A. Work this row all the way down. Finish pattern A. 2 stitches remaining at the back. Pick up at the last stitch here. Which is next to the yarn tail. Make 1 double crochet. This completes row 1. We'll weave in the beginning and ending yarn tails into the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches. Another yarn tail, using the same method, just weave it in. I won't repeat the demonstration. Row 1 is completed. Continue crocheting. Here I'll use a completed swatch to demonstrate. The next row 2 is single crochet, followed by pattern B. 1 row of single crochets. Once completed, repeat these 4 rows as a sequence. Work even until the even section is completed. Refer to the chart for exact row count. Once the even section is completed, continue crocheting the decreasing section, using the same method as the first section. I won't repeat the explanation. You can follow the chart directly. Or refer to the first section. The stitch pattern remains the same thereafter. I won't demonstrate this part. Up to this point, the second section is complete, and the main part of the scarf is finished. Now let's make the hat. Cast on along one side of the scarf. Work back and forth upward. After completing the required rows, you'll need to shape both ends into a crown shape. The stitch technique used is the same as before, only the first row stitch in is slightly different. Watch me demonstrate the specific crocheting method. Let's mark first the crochet section for the hat. I've already marked it here. Let me explain the position. With the right side of the scarf facing you, which means the side with neat double crochet texture, find the first row of single crochets in the first section. The side where pattern A is picked up is the first section. Place it on the left side. The other side is the second section. To make it convenient for finding positions later, we'll mark this row of single crochets. Lay the scarf flat, starting from the single crochet with the stitch marker. Count the corresponding rows on both sides. The specific number of rows, refer to the corresponding chart. After counting to the corresponding rows, mark the edges, including the middle row of single crochets between the 2 stitch markers, including the row on the stitch markers. This is the crochet section for the hat. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch, with fewer rows, the total number of rows between them. Also refer to the corresponding chart. You can also adjust according to the actual situation. Adjust as needed. Pay attention to maintaining symmetry on both sides. Mark the positions. Start crocheting downward. To make it clearer for demonstration purposes, I'm using a different color. Here, I'm demonstrating with another color. Tie a knot as before. Leave a yarn loop. Find the marked position. Position the wrong side of the scarf toward you. Locate the stitch marker on the right side. Cast on at the edge of this row. This is the double crochet turning chain position. Pick up the entire double crochet turning chain with your hook. Draw the loop through. Adjust slightly. Then cast on and make one single crochet. While crocheting, place the yarn tail above the hook. Hide it along the fabric texture. Mark the first stitch. In the same chain space, make another single crochet. At the double crochet turning chain position, make 2 single crochets in one chain space. The next row is single crochets. Pick up the edge. Pick up one edge stitch as single crochet, correspondingly make one single crochet. Then comes the next part. At the double crochet turning chain position, make 2 single crochets in one chain space. While crocheting, pay attention to weave-in ends. When encountering single crochet rows later, pick up its edge. Correspondingly make one single crochet. When reaching the double crochet turning chain position, make 2 single crochets in one chain space. Follow this method. Continue crocheting downward. Reach the scarf starting chain position. Here pick up the edge of the first row of single crochets. Correspondingly make one single crochet. The next part is the pattern edge. Pick up the edge double crochet. Make 2 single crochets in one chain space. Downward single crochet rows. Correspondingly make one single crochet. One chain space at double crochet position. Make 2 single crochets. Finish the remaining part. Reach the stitch marker position. This is the double crochet position. Correspondingly make 2 single crochets. This completes the first row. Crochet the second row downward. Work back and forth the same way. Need to turn the fabric. This row works pattern B. Chain 3 as the beginning chain. Mark it. Skip the stitch under the turning chain and the adjacent stitch. Pick up the corresponding position to crochet pattern B. Skip 2 stitches after that. Crochet pattern B. Complete this row. Finish pattern B. Finally, at the marker position, make 1 double crochet. Completed the second row. Following rows, single crochet row. Pattern A row, single crochet row, pattern B row, repeat the sequence. Crochet all the way down to the 5th row from the end, and complete the 5th row. The crocheting method is the same. I won't demonstrate it. Next I'll explain. The crocheting of the 4th row from the end. Starting from this row, need to work in the middle of the hat. Decrease stitches. First mark the decrease positions. Again I'll demonstrate using a small sample. Find the single crochet in the middle of the scarf. That is, the row marked by the stitch marker earlier. Find above this row the corresponding pattern on the hat. From this pattern upwards, find the position corresponding to the 5th row from the end. This is a single crochet. Find the centered single crochet stitch above the corresponding pattern. Mark this stitch. This is where we begin decreasing. Mark the position. Start crocheting. According to the pattern, this row is pattern A. First cast on. Mark it. Then pick up the corresponding position. Work pattern A accordingly. Keep crocheting until one pattern before the stitch marker. Complete this pattern. Skip 2 stitches downward. Perfectly reach the stitch marker position. Crochet 2 double crochets here. No chain stitches between the double crochets. And mark the second stitch. Convenient to find the decrease position for the next row? After completing, continue to the decrease position. After completing, skip 2 stitches. Pick up the corresponding position and work pattern A. Complete the last pattern. Continue to pick up the last stitch. Work 1 double crochet. Completed the 4th to last row of crocheting. Move on to the 3rd to last row, which is single crochet stitch pattern. Work single crochets into each stitch in sequence. Continue until the stitch before the stitch marker. Leave this stitch unworked. At the corresponding position, Continue crocheting downward, decrease 2 single crochets. Pick up the adjacent stitch and work at the stitch marker position. After completing, continue to pick up the adjacent position, work a decrease of 2 single crochets. And mark this stitch. Work single crochets into each stitch in the remaining part, correspondingly make single crochets. Complete the last single crochet. The third to last row is done. Crochet the second to last row downward. This is pattern B. Begin with a chain stitch. Mark it. Then pick up the corresponding position. Crochet pattern B. Work all the way down to 3 stitches before the stitch marker, 3 stitches before the marker. Leave the last 3 stitches unworked. Finish the pattern. Downward distance from the stitch marker position. Leave 3 stitches unworked, including the stitch marker position, total of 4 stitches. Skip 1 stitch first. Pick up the next stitch and the marked stitch position. Work a double crochet decrease. Once completed, pick up the adjacent stitch and the second stitch after it, 1, 2. Right here, work a double crochet decrease. Mark this stitch. This decrease also uses 3 stitches. Skip 1 stitch going forward. Pick up the corresponding position and work pattern B. Continue with the remaining part. Skipping 2 stitches and working 1 pattern B following the pattern. Work 1 double crochet at the last position. The second to last row is completed. Next, work the last row. Using single crochet stitch technique. Start by working single crochets into each and every stitch. Keep crocheting until the stitch before the stitch marker. Leave this stitch unworked. At the corresponding position, work a 2-stitch decrease single crochet. No need to mark here. You can remove the stitch marker. Once completed, continue picking up adjacent positions. Work a 2-stitch decrease single crochet. Work even single crochets for the remaining part. Complete the last single crochet stitch. The final row of the hat is done. Cut the yarn for the next step. First work 1 chain stitch to secure. Then leave a yarn tail of 78 cm for sewing the crown. So the crochet work for the hat piece has been explained. The right side corresponding to the scarf is the right side of the hat. Mark any position on this side. Proceed to sew the crown. Place the wrong side facing you. That is, the side without stitch markers. Make the back side stand out. Match the edges of the last row. Sew them together correspondingly. Continue sewing until the decrease point. Use the whip stitch technique. Pick up stitches from both sides and sew together. After sewing, weave in the yarn tail into the fabric. You can weave in a few extra stitches. Now the crown is completed. At the same time, the explanation for the hat part is done. Next, add the edging. Start with a chain stitch from one end of the scarf, then along the edge of the scarf and the hat. Besides the stitch patterns used before, slip stitch technique is also used here. Watch my demonstration. I'll continue to demonstrate using a swatch, with the right side of the scarf and hat facing you. The crown also with the right side facing out. The hat is on top. Find the pointed end of the scarf. Here I start with a chain stitch on the right side. Pick up the corresponding yarn. Specific color. Refer to the actual project or chart. Find this end. Last row of the scarf, which is 3 single crochets, decrease here. Pick up with hook the decreased stitch. Make 1 single crochet on this stitch. Mark this stitch. Chain 3 as turning chain. As beginning chain. Insert into the single crochet stitch. Work 2 double crochets. One, 2. Here we consider 3 chains and 2 double crochets as edging pattern. When reaching the second to last row edge, pick up the chain space here. Correspondingly make a single crochet. Next edging pattern, which is 3 chain stitches, 2 double crochets. The double crochet insertion hole is in the single crochet stitch. After completing, skip the adjacent position. Pick up the edge of the next single crochet row. Work a single crochet in the chain space. One edging pattern. Pick up the edge of the single crochet row going down. Work single crochets correspondingly. Between single crochets, crochet 1 edging pattern. Repeat this process. Continue all the way down. Finish this edging pattern. Pick up the edge of the single crochet row going down. Make a single crochet. Next continue 1 edging pattern. Pick up the single crochet on the first row edge of the hat. Correspondingly make a single crochet. Next 1 edging pattern. Pick up the edge of the single crochet row going down. Work single crochets correspondingly. Between single crochets correspondingly make one edging pattern. Continue going down. When reaching the sewing position of the hat, pick up the middle of these two rows of single crochets. Correspondingly make a single crochet. Continue crocheting the edging pattern. Finish the edging pattern. Pick up the first row edge of the hat going down. Correspondingly make a single crochet. Next one edging pattern. Pick up the scarf area going down. Edge of the single crochet row, work single crochets correspondingly. Continue following the previous pattern going forward. Crochet the pattern. When you reach the other end of the scarf, pick up the decreased stitches of the last row, work single crochets only. Repeat this process. Finish the remaining part. Complete this pattern. Going down to the stitch marker, correspondingly make a slip stitch. Insert the hook into the stitch marker's space. Yarn over and draw through. Pull through all loops on the hook. Slip stitch completed. After slip stitch, there will be a braid here. This is the braid formed by the slip stitch. To make the edging pattern gap smaller here, tighten the slip stitch. Make one chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. Beginning and ending yarn tails, hide them inside the fabric. Stitch markers can be removed. This completes the edging. Meanwhile, the main part explanation is completed. Next, make accessories. Let's make the ears first. Single ear here consists of two identical fabric pieces. First, crochet two fabric pieces separately. After completion, crochet the edging along the edge. Secure the two ear pieces together. Finally, sew the completed ears to the corresponding position on the hat. Let's crochet the ear pieces first. The starting method for the ear pieces here and the stitch techniques used are the same as the main part. The crochet stitch techniques are identical. I won't repeat the demonstration. First, follow the scarf's cast on method. Crochet the corresponding chain stitches. Here there are 4 ear pieces total. Among them, the starting tails of 2 pieces. Leave slightly longer. About 34 cm in length is sufficient. Needed for sewing later. After completion, work back and forth in single crochets. Continue crocheting until reaching the corresponding rows. Then proceed with decreasing. Decrease 1 stitch at the beginning and end. Continue decreasing until only 3 stitches remain. Finally work a decrease for 3 single crochets. Once completed, cut the yarn. The final yarn tail, hide it inside the fabric. Here I've already finished crocheting 4 ear pieces. 2 pieces have long yarn tails left. The starting yarn tails of the 2 pieces are short. Here tuck the short tail inside the fabric. The weaving method is the same. I won't repeat the demonstration. Look. This is what the ear pieces look like after completion. Completed crocheting the ear pieces. Next sew them together in pairs. Secure them using edging method. Pick up a piece without yarn tails. And a piece with yarn tails. Here. The first row of single crochets texture is neat on this side. This is the right side of the ear. Place the 2 pieces wrong sides together. Corresponding positions. Right sides of the pieces both facing out. Then along these 2 edges of the piece. Crochet the edging. Note, the bottom edge doesn't need to be crocheted. Pick up the corresponding yarn. Refer to the actual project or pattern chart. Find the right side of the piece. First row of single crochets edge. Hook goes through both. Corresponding positions of the 2 pieces. Start single crochets here. While crocheting, remember to weave in the ends. Work along the edge, picking up each row of single crochets. Note. Hook goes through both. Corresponding positions of the 2 pieces. Work single crochets evenly into each stitch. Continue crocheting downward. When reaching the last row of the piece, pick up the top edge and make 1 single crochet. Then continue along the edge, crochet single crochets. After finishing the first row of edges, move down to the starting point of the piece. No need to secure. Now cut the yarn. Chain 1 to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. Hide the yarn tail inside the fabric. This completes the 2 pieces. They are now secured together. 2 pieces remaining. Follow the same method to secure them. I will not repeat the demonstration. The ears are completed. Next, proceed with sewing. First mark the sewing position for the ears. I'll use the finished product to show the position. Place the hat top with the right side facing up. Locate the sewing position on the hat top. centered on this sewn line. Find the relatively centered position along this line. Count 9 rows to each side. Then mark the corresponding positions. Once completed, angle downward by about 1 pattern. Sew on the ears. For the ear position here, you can also adjust according to your preference. Pay attention to maintaining symmetry. Find the position. Next, secure the ears to the marked positions. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch. Pick up the ear with the neatly crocheted, edging side facing you, facing yourself. Here I'm using the right side ear to demonstrate the sewing. Take the unsecured side. Align the left end with the marked stitch position. Angle the other end down by 1 motif. Secure at the corresponding position. When you're actually sewing, pay attention to keeping both ears symmetrical. Secure the position well. Start sewing. Use the reserved yarn from the ear for sewing. Mindful that the fabric pieces stay separate while sewing. Don't sew them together. There are no requirements for the number of stitches or gaps. Just make sure it's sewn securely. After finishing this side, proceed to sew the other side. Hide the yarn tail inside the fabric. This completes one ear. For the other ear, sew it using the same method. I will not repeat the demonstration. That concludes the explanation for the ear section. Finally, let's make the tassels. Take a cardboard strip the same length as the tassel. Wrap the yarn on this side of the cardboard. First, place a horizontal line at the top. Then yarn over. Refer to the chart for the specific number of rounds. After wrapping the required number of rounds, don't cut the yarn tail yet. Tie a knot with the top horizontal line. Now take the scissors. Cut the yarn at the other end. Tighten the knot on top. Using the uncut yarn, wrap it around 2-3 centimeters down from the top. Make 6-7 rounds. And pull tight. Finally, cut the yarn. The yarn length should be slightly longer than the tassel. Use a crochet hook to hide the yarn tail. Then trim the excess yarn tail. One tassel is now complete. The scarf requires 2 tassels in total. The other one follows the same method. I will not repeat the demonstration. Next, attach the tassel to the top of the scarf. Place the tassel on the scarf. Leave a small gap between the tassel and the scarf. Leave a slight gap here between the tassel and the scarf. Finally, hide the yarn tail inside the fabric, or hide it inside the tassel. The tassel is now attached. Up to this point, the entire hooded scarf making process is now complete. If you have any unclear points during the crocheting process, please contact our customer service via Facebook. If you want to be the first to see the latest knitting tutorials, please follow us. Susan's family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.